The spring festival of Luminara painted the prosperous city in shades of gold and pink as cherry blossoms drifted through the crisp mountain air. The city, nestled between snow-capped peaks and ancient forests in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, buzzed with celebration. Vendor stalls lined the cobblestone streets, and the scent of fresh bread mingled with blooming flowers. Among the crowd, Adrian Volkart stood apart, not just by choice, but by the natural deference people showed the Alpha King. At 35, his imposing 6'3" frame, silver eyes that seemed to pierce through souls, and midnight black hair commanded respect wherever he walked. His tailored charcoal suit spoke of wealth and authority, and the weight of centuries-old traditions rested on his broad shoulders. Adrian had attended the festival as tradition demanded, his presence a symbol of the royal clan's connection to the common people. Yet he felt disconnected, going through motions that had long lost meaning. The arranged marriage discussions with suitable alpha females from noble lineages felt like shackles rather than destiny. His counsel insisted on purity of bloodlines, on strength breeding strength, on maintaining the hierarchy that kept Luminara's supernatural community stable and powerful. As he walked past a modest flower shop with hand-painted wooden signs, something shifted in the air around him. The sensation struck like lightning, unexpected and undeniable, a pulling in his chest that made him stop mid-stride. Through the shop window he saw her. Ellis Montier arranged tulips with gentle hands, her honey-colored eyes focused on creating the perfect bouquet. Her chestnut hair, long and wavy, cascaded over her shoulders as she worked, and even through the glass, Adrian could see the kindness in her smile as she helped an elderly customer. She wore a simple cream-colored dress with a floral apron, flour dusting one cheek from the pastries she'd clearly been sampling from the bakery next door. There was nothing extraordinary about her appearance by royal standards, no designer clothes or practiced elegance, yet Adrian felt his world tilt on its axis. The bond, that mythical connection his grandmother had described in stories he'd dismissed as romantic nonsense, pulled at every fiber of his being. He found himself pushing open the door, the bell chiming softly. Ellis looked up, and their eyes met. She felt it too. He could see the recognition in her widening gaze, the way her breath caught, the basket of roses nearly slipping from her fingers. For a moment, the bustling festival outside faded, and only they existed in that small flower shop filled with the perfume of 100 different blooms. Adrian had commanded armies, negotiated treaties, and faced down challenges to his authority without hesitation. Yet standing before this Omega florist, he found himself at a loss for words. "Can I help you?" Ellis asked, her voice soft but steady, though he could hear her heart racing, matching the rhythm of his own. She set down the basket and wiped her hands on her apron, a nervous gesture that he found endearing. There was strength in her, he realized, a quiet resilience that belied her delicate appearance. She didn't cower before his presence like so many Omegas didn't lower her gaze in automatic submission. Instead, she looked at him with curiosity and something that might have been hope. "I need flowers," Adrian said, the excuse sounding hollow even to his own ears. "For my residence." He watched as she moved through her shop, selecting stems with practiced ease, explaining the meaning behind each choice. Lilies for devotion, roses for passion, forget-me-nots for true love and memories. Her knowledge impressed him, but more than that, the gentle passion in her voice as she spoke about her craft captivated him completely. He learned that she'd inherited the shop from her grandmother, that she'd built it from near bankruptcy into a modest success through sheer determination, that she loved the mountains and found peace in the ancient forests surrounding their city. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease, formality melting away like spring snow. Adrian found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. His love for classical music, his secret passion for astronomy, the loneliness that came with a crown. Ellis listened with genuine interest, her honey eyes warm and understanding. She told him about her simple life, her small apartment above the shop, her dreams of one day having a garden where she could grow her own flowers. When he asked about her family, a shadow crossed her face. She was alone, she explained quietly. Her parents lost to illness years ago. No siblings, no close relatives. The shop and the flowers were her family now. As the sun began to set, painting Luminara's mountains in shades of orange and purple, Adrian realized he'd spent hours in that tiny shop, more content than he'd been in years. The bond hummed between them, undeniable and pure. He should walk away, he knew. His council would never accept an omega of common birth, especially one with no family connections or political advantage. The traditions were clear, the expectations rigid. Yet, as he looked into Elise's hopeful face, as he felt the rightness of standing beside her, Adrian made a decision that would change everything. He asked if he could see her again, not as a king visiting a subject, but as a man hoping to know a woman who'd somehow become the missing piece of his soul. Ellis smiled, and it was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "I'd like that very much," she whispered. And though neither of them could have known the heartbreak that lay ahead, in that moment, surrounded by flowers and fading light, they found something both had stopped believing existed, hope for a love that transcended every rule trying to keep them apart. The months that followed were the happiest of Adrian's life, lived in stolen moments and secret meetings. He would slip away from the royal estate after dark, trading his formal attire for simple jeans and sweaters, becoming just Adrian instead of the Alpha King. They would meet in Elisa's cozy apartment above the flower shop, where she'd prepare simple dinners that tasted better than any royal feast. They talked for hours, sharing dreams and fears, discovering that despite their vastly different worlds, their souls spoke the same language. On weekends, they hiked the mountain trails, Elise teaching him the names of wildflowers while he pointed out constellations in the crystal-clear night sky. Their love grew with each passing day, deep and true and powerful. Adrian had never felt so alive, so completely himself. With Elise, he didn't have to be the infallible leader or the perfect symbol of alpha strength. He could be vulnerable, could laugh at silly jokes, could dance badly in her tiny kitchen while music played from an old radio. She saw him, truly saw him, not the crown or the power, but the man beneath it all. And he saw her courage, her gentle strength, the way she transformed ordinary moments into something magical. The bond between them strengthened, an invisible thread that connected their hearts across every distance. But happiness built on secrets is fragile, and reality has a way of shattering illusions. Ellis discovered she was pregnant on a cool October morning, the test showing positive as autumn leaves fell like copper rain outside her bathroom window. Joy and fear warred within her as she stared at those 2 pink lines. She wanted this child, wanted to build a family with Adrian. But she knew the complications this would bring. That evening, when Adrian arrived with takeout from her favorite restaurant, she told him with trembling hands and hopeful eyes. She watched his face transform, shock giving way to wonder, then pure joy as he pulled her into his arms, whispering promises of forever, of protecting them both, of finding a way to make this work despite every obstacle. For 3 blissful weeks they lived in a bubble of planning and dreaming. Adrian spoke of reforming traditions, of claiming Elis publicly as his mate, of preparing the clan to accept their future queen and the precious child she carried. He was the Alpha King, he reasoned. His word was law, and love should matter more than outdated rules about bloodlines. But he underestimated the power of tradition and the iron will of the council that had guided Luminara's royal clan for generations. When whispers of his relationship with a common Omega reached the council's ears, they summoned him with cold formality, and Adrian's world began to crumble. The council chamber was austere, all dark wood and ancestral portraits, the weight of history pressing down from every corner. 12 elders sat in judgment, their faces carved from stone and disappointment. They'd heard rumors, they informed him, and needed clarification about his relationship status. Adrian stood tall, intending to announce his choice with pride. But before he could speak, the head councilman, Marcus Thorne, a silver-haired alpha of 70 years and unwavering tradition, laid out their ultimatum with brutal clarity. An Omega of common birth could never be queen. The bloodline must remain pure. Strong alpha genetics passed to strong alpha heirs. It was the foundation of their society, the key to their survival and prosperity. They presented him with irrefutable evidence of treaties that would dissolve, alliances that would crumble, and rival clans that would challenge his authority if he broke with tradition so completely. They reminded him of his duty, of the hundreds who depended on his leadership, of the chaos that would follow if he put personal desire above communal good. They spoke of Alara Blackwood, an alpha female from a prestigious bloodline, intelligent and powerful, the perfect match to strengthen the clan. The marriage contract had been prepared, they informed him, requiring only his signature. And then Marcus delivered the crushing blow, his voice hard as winter stone. If Adrian refused, if he chose the Omega over his duty, they would invoke the ancient right of challenge, would strip him of his position, would ensure that both he and Elis would be exiled, penniless and unprotected, their child born into poverty and shame. Adrian felt trapped, every direction leading to loss. If he fought for Elis, he risked destroying her life and their child's future. If he surrendered to duty, he destroyed his own heart. The council gave him 3 days to decide, 3 days that passed in sleepless agony. He sought counsel from the few he trusted, but even his closest advisors urged compliance. Change, they said, must come slowly. Perhaps in time, after securing his position with a proper marriage, he could reform the traditions. But Elis and the child must be set aside now, for the greater good. When Adrian finally returned to Elis's apartment, she knew before he spoke. She saw the defeat in his silver eyes, the slump of shoulders that usually carried authority so easily. He sat at her small kitchen table, head in his hands, and told her everything. He offered money, a comfortable house in a distant mountain village, everything he could provide except what she truly needed, his presence, his love made public, his name for their child. Elis listened with breaking heart, watching the man she loved choose duty over them, understanding intellectually, but bleeding emotionally. "You're a king before you're a man," she said quietly, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, but understanding doesn't make this hurt less." She stood, wrapping her arms around herself as if holding together pieces that were falling apart. "I won't beg you to stay. Our child deserves better than a father who stayed out of guilt or obligation. If you can't fight for us, if tradition matters more than love, then we'll manage without you." Adrian reached for her, but she stepped back, and that small distance felt like an ocean. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words pathetically inadequate. "I'm so sorry." He arranged everything as promised: a deed to a cottage in the mountain village of Pine Ridge, accounts that would ensure they never wanted for material things. Then he left, walking out of her apartment and her life, each step away feeling like he was tearing out his own heart. Behind him, Ellis collapsed against the door, silent sobs shaking her frame, one hand pressed to her still flat stomach where their daughter grew, already loved, already mourned for the father she'd never truly know. If you're enjoying this emotional journey, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the continuation of Adrian and Ellis's story. Pine Ridge was everything Luminara was not: small, quiet, and blessedly anonymous. The cottage Adrian had provided sat on the edge of the village, a charming 2-bedroom structure with a stone fireplace and windows overlooking the forest. Ellis had arrived in late autumn, her heart heavy, but her resolve strengthening with each day her daughter grew inside her. The village welcomed her without questions, accepting her story of being a widow starting fresh. She found work altering clothes for the local boutique, her skilled hands creating beautiful embroidery that soon made her services highly sought after. The mountains cradled her grief, and slowly, painfully, she began to build a new life from the ashes of her dreams. Luna Montier was born on a snowy February morning, arriving 3 weeks early with lusty cries that filled the small cottage with life. The local midwife, a kind woman named Martha, placed the infant in Ellis's arms, and whatever remained of Ellis's broken heart healed in that instant. Luna was perfect, impossibly tiny with wispy dark hair and eyes that would soon turn the same striking silver as her father's. Ellis traced the baby's delicate features, seeing Adrian in the shape of her nose, the determined set of her tiny chin, and feeling a bittersweet ache. This child would never know her father, but Ellis vowed she would never doubt her mother's love. The years that followed were challenging, but filled with unexpected joy. Ellis poured everything into raising Luna, working long hours at her sewing, while the baby napped, playing with her daughter in the meadows during summer, teaching her to make flower crowns and identify bird songs. Luna grew into a spirited child, bright and curious with an infectious laugh that could light up the darkest days. She asked about her father sometimes, and Ellis told her carefully crafted truths: that he was a good man who loved them both, but couldn't be with them. That sometimes life was complicated, that his absence wasn't Luna's fault. The little girl seemed to accept this, finding completeness in the abundance of her mother's devotion. Meanwhile, in Luminara, Adrian existed in a gray wasteland of his own making. He'd married Alara Blackwood as the council demanded, a ceremony of political precision, with no warmth or genuine emotion. Alara was everything they'd promised: intelligent, beautiful, competent. She understood their marriage was a partnership, not a romance, and maintained her own separate life with dignified discretion. They were cordial, professional, and utterly disconnected. Adrian performed his duties flawlessly, expanding Luminara's influence and securing prosperous trade agreements. But he moved through life like a ghost, present in body but absent in spirit. He'd assigned his most trusted scout, Samuel, to discreetly monitor Ellis and Luna, not as surveillance, but as desperate connection to the life he'd abandoned. Samuel's reports arrived monthly, sealed envelopes that Adrian read alone in his study, each word a knife to his heart. He learned of Luna's birth, imagined holding his daughter, and wept for the first time since childhood. He read about her first steps, her first words, her first day at the village school. Samuel included photographs, blurry images taken from respectful distances that Adrian studied for hours, memorizing every detail of the child he'd never met and the woman he'd never stopped loving. As Luna's 5th birthday approached, something inside Adrian finally broke past the walls of duty and tradition. He'd sacrificed 5 years to appease others. 5 years of his daughter's life lost forever. 5 years of Elis facing each day alone. The realization struck during a particularly tedious council meeting. Marcus Thorne droning on about maintaining bloodline purity. And Adrian looked around the table at these men who'd convinced him to abandon his family. They weren't happy, he realized. They were rigid, bound by the same traditions that imprisoned him, their own lives sacrificed to outdated ideals. Was this the legacy he wanted? Was this the example he'd set for Luna if she ever learned about him? That night, Adrian made his decision. He called Samuel to the estate, asked for honest assessment of Elis and Luna's life. Samuel, who'd watched from afar for 5 years, spoke plainly. "She's strong, sir. She's built a good life. But she's lonely. And the little one, Luna, she's remarkable. Smart, kind, brave. She has your eyes, and her mother's heart." He paused, then added quietly, "If you're asking whether they need you, the answer is complicated. They've survived without you. But surviving isn't the same as thriving. And a child deserves to know her father if that father is willing to do the hard work of earning that place." The words galvanized Adrian. He began planning, not impulsively, but with the strategic mind that made him an effective leader. He met privately with progressive council members, building support for reforms. He compiled evidence of other successful clans with more flexible traditions. He prepared to face opposition, to fight for change, to risk everything he'd been protecting. This wouldn't be easy, and he might lose his position, but he'd already lost everything that mattered. It was time to fight for the chance to regain it. As winter faded into early spring, Adrian set his plans in motion. He would go to Pine Ridge, would face Elis and beg for forgiveness he didn't deserve, would meet his daughter and try to become the father she deserved. The outcome was uncertain, the path forward fraught with obstacles. But for the first time in 5 years, Adrian felt truly alive, driven by purpose stronger than duty, motivated by love deeper than tradition. Adrian's formal announcement to the council came on a crisp March morning, spring, beginning to push through winter's last resistance. He stood before the assembled elders, no longer the compliant leader they'd molded, but a man reclaiming his authority and his life. His voice was steady, his silver eyes hard as steel. He was implementing immediate reforms to clan traditions, he informed them, beginning with recognition that strength came in many forms, and bloodline purity was archaic thinking that weakened rather than strengthened their community. Furthermore, he was acknowledging his 5-year-old daughter, Luna Montier, as his legitimate heir, and he would be pursuing reconciliation with her mother, Elis, regardless of their approval. The chamber erupted in outrage. Marcus Thorne stood, face purple with fury, demanding Adrian remember his marriage to Alara, his obligations, the chaos this would cause. Adrian listened to the tirade calmly, then delivered his counter with surgical precision. His marriage to Alara had been one of political convenience, entered under duress, and Alara herself supported its dissolution, having fallen in love with a fellow alpha she'd met through her charity work. The marriage had never been consummated, had existed only on paper, and both parties agreed to annulment. As for chaos, Adrian noted dryly, perhaps it was time for their comfortable order to be disrupted, if maintaining it required good people to suffer. He'd spent months building his case, gathering support from younger council members, and presenting evidence of thriving supernatural communities with progressive traditions. He outlined his vision for Luminara's future, one where merit mattered more than birth, where love and genuine partnership strengthened rather than weakened leadership. Some council members listened, intrigued despite themselves. Others remained rigidly opposed. Marcus called for a vote of no confidence, but when the ballots were counted, Adrian retained his position by a narrow margin. The council was divided. Change was coming whether they liked it or not, and Adrian was free to pursue his personal life without their interference, though he'd made powerful enemies in the process. With legal and political obstacles cleared, Adrian faced his most daunting challenge: the 200-mile journey to Pine Ridge and the conversation that would determine his future. He drove himself, refusing the royal motorcade, wanting to arrive as just a man, not a king. The winding mountain roads gave him hours to think, to rehearse words that seemed inadequate, to imagine scenarios ranging from hopeful to heartbreaking. What if Ellis had moved on? What if Luna rejected him? What if his appearance disrupted the peace they'd built? But Samuel's recent report had included one crucial detail. Ellis had never removed the small silver necklace Adrian had given her during their time together, still wore it tucked beneath her clothes, hidden but not discarded. It was a thread of hope he clung to desperately. Pine Ridge appeared as the sun began its descent, a picturesque village that looked like something from a storybook. Adrian parked near the general store, asking directions to the cottage he'd purchased but never visited. The clerk, a chatty woman in her 60s, brightened when he mentioned Elis. "Oh, she's wonderful. And that daughter of hers is the sweetest child." They lived just past the meadow, the cottage with the blue shutters. The genuine affection in her voice warmed Adrian even as his nerves intensified. Ellis had built community here, had created the home he'd failed to provide. The cottage was exactly as described, charming and well-maintained, smoke curling from the chimney as evening approached. Adrian sat in his car for long minutes, gathering courage. Through the window, he could see movement, lamplight casting warm glows. This was it, the moment 5 years of regret had been leading toward. He stepped out, straightened his jacket, and walked up the stone path, each step feeling monumental. He raised his hand to knock, then heard it. A child's laughter, pure and joyful, followed by Elise's voice saying something that made the child giggle harder. His daughter, his family, the family he'd abandoned. Before he could lose his nerve, Adrian knocked. The laughter stopped. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and there stood Ellis, 5 years older but even more beautiful, her honey eyes widening in shock. She wore simple jeans and a cream sweater, flour dusting her hands, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. For a moment, neither spoke, the air between them heavy with history and hurt and lingering love. "Adrian," she finally whispered, his name a question and accusation and prayer all at once. "Ellis." His voice cracked on her name. "I know I have no right to be here. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be excused, but I need to try to make this right. I need to meet our daughter, if you'll allow it. And I need to tell you that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life, that I've spent 5 years in hell of my own making, and that I love you with everything I am." The words tumbled out, heartfelt and desperate. "I'm not asking for forgiveness I haven't earned. I'm just asking for a chance to try." "We'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite part of the story so far?" Leave a comment below and let us know what you think will happen next. Ellis stared at him, emotions warring across her face. Anger, hurt, hope, fear. Before she could respond, a small voice came from behind her. "Mama, who is it?" Luna appeared, peeking around her mother's legs, and Adrian's breath caught. She was perfect, this miniature person he'd helped create, with his silver eyes looking up at him with curious innocence. "Hello?" Luna said politely, the manners her mother had taught her evident. "I'm Luna. What's your name?" Adrian knelt slowly, bringing himself to her eye level, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "My name is Adrian," he managed, voice thick. "It's very nice to meet you. Luna, you're even more beautiful than I imagined." Luna studied him with that unsettling directness children possess, then pointed to his eyes. "You have silver eyes like me. Mama says mine are special." She smiled, gap-toothed and utterly trusting, and something in Adrian's chest shattered and healed simultaneously. "They are special," he agreed softly. "Very special indeed." Ella stood frozen, watching her daughter interact with her father for the first time. A moment she'd imagined countless ways, but never quite like this. Reality was messier, more emotionally complex than any fantasy. Adrian's face showed naked vulnerability, love and regret etched into every line, and despite 5 years of carefully constructed walls around her heart, Ellis felt them beginning to crack. Luna, oblivious to the undercurrents, had taken Adrian's hand and was pulling him inside, chattering about the puzzle she'd been working on, asking if he liked puzzles too, completely comfortable with this stranger in a way that terrified and touched Elise simultaneously. "Luna, sweetheart." Elise found her voice, gentle but firm. "Why don't you go play in your room for a few minutes while I talk with our guest?" Luna pouted, but obeyed, skipping down the hallway with one last curious glance at Adrian. Once they were alone, the weight of 5 years settled between them. Ellis gestured to the worn couch and they sat, careful distance maintained. "Why now?" she asked quietly, needing to understand. 5 years, Adrian. 5 years of nothing, and suddenly you're here. What changed? Adrian met her gaze steadily, refusing to look away from the pain he'd caused. "I changed. Or rather, I finally found the courage to become who I should have been from the start." He told her everything. The miserable marriage, the political maneuvering, the moment of clarity, the reforms he'd implemented. "I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm not even asking you to forgive me, though I hope someday you might. I'm here because our daughter deserves to know her father, and because I've loved you every single day since I walked away, and I can't spend another day pretending I don't." Ellis listened, tears streaming silently. Part of her wanted to send him away, to protect herself and Luna from potential future hurt. But another part, the part that had never stopped loving him despite everything, recognized the truth in his words. This wasn't the conflicted man who'd chosen duty over family. This was someone who'd fought through to the other side, who'd risked everything for a chance at redemption. "You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be fine," she said, voice breaking. "You missed so much. Her first word was mama because you weren't there. Her first steps were toward me because I was all she had. Every night she asked about you, and I had to find new ways to explain why her father wasn't there." "I know," Adrian whispered, his own tears falling freely now. "I know, and I'll carry that guilt forever. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Not unless you tell me to. I want to be part of her life, part of your life if you'll have me. I know I have to earn that, and I will, however long it takes. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a folder. I've set up a trust for Luna, insured her future regardless of what happens with us. And I've brought something else. From the folder, he withdrew papers, legal documents. Recognition of Luna as my legitimate daughter and heir, registered with the clan and the state. She'll have my name if she wants it, my protection, everything I should have given her from the start. Ellis took the papers with shaking hands, reading through legal language that made real what had always been true. Luna was Adrian's daughter, acknowledged and protected. It was something, a concrete action rather than empty words. She needs stability, Ellis said firmly, wiping her tears. I won't have her life disrupted by you appearing and disappearing on your schedule. If you're in, you're all in. That means being here consistently, building trust slowly. She's 5 years old, Adrian. She doesn't understand complicated adult relationships. To her, you're a stranger, and that's going to take time to change. I'll do whatever it takes, Adrian promised. I can relocate here, or we can work out a schedule, whatever works best for you and Luna. I'm not trying to take over or push my way into the life you've built. I'm asking for the opportunity to be part of it, to support you instead of making things harder. He paused, vulnerability raw in his expression. And I'm asking if there's any chance, any possibility at all, that you could ever love me again. I know I don't deserve it, but Ellis, you're still the only person I've ever loved. The only one I'll ever love. Ellis closed her eyes, feeling the pull of the bond that had never truly broken despite distance and time and heartbreak. She could feel his sincerity, his desperation, his love. And beneath her hurt and anger, her own love for him still burned, ember that had never quite extinguished. I never stopped loving you, she admitted quietly, the confession costing her. That's what made it so hard. I was angry and hurt and felt betrayed. But I never stopped loving you. That doesn't mean I'm ready to just pick up where we left off. Trust has to be rebuilt, and that takes time. Hope lit Adrian's features, transforming him. Time I have. All the time you need. They talked for hours as evening deepened into night, Luna eventually falling asleep on the couch between them, her small hand clasped in her father's for the first time. They discussed practical arrangements. Adrian would stay at the local inn, would visit daily, would slowly build relationship with Luna as her father, rather than as a stranger. They would take things slowly between themselves, rebuilding friendship before attempting anything more. It wouldn't be easy. Wounds this deep didn't heal quickly, but they were both willing to try. The following weeks tested their resolve and rewarded their patience. Adrian showed up every day without fail, bringing puzzles Luna loved, teaching her to identify constellations just as he'd once taught her mother, reading bedtime stories with voices that made her giggle. He helped Elise with repairs around the cottage, shopped for groceries, integrated himself into their routines without overwhelming them. Luna, with the resilience of children, accepted his presence gradually, testing boundaries and finding him steady. The day she first called him Papa, tentative and questioning, Adrian had to step outside to compose himself, overwhelmed by gratitude for a gift he'd thought forever lost. Ellis watched this careful courtship, watching Adrian earn his place in their family day by day. He was patient with Luna's questions, honest in age-appropriate ways about his mistakes, consistent in his presence. More than that, he supported Ellis, encouraged her sewing business, helped her dream bigger than just survival. He never pressured for more than she was ready to give, content to exist in whatever capacity she allowed. Slowly, her walls came down. Late evening conversations after Luna slept became the highlight of both their days, talking about everything and nothing, rediscovering the connection that had brought them together. 3 months after his arrival, on a warm June evening with fireflies dancing in the meadow, Adrian and Ellis took Luna on a picnic. The little girl ran ahead, chasing butterflies, her laughter echoing across the field. Adrian took Ellis's hand, and she didn't pull away. "I need to tell you something," he said softly. She turned to him, honey eyes meeting silver, and in them he saw it. Forgiveness, not forgotten but integrated, transformed into something stronger. "I love you," he continued. "I've always loved you. And I know we're taking this slowly, rebuilding, but I need you to know that my endgame hasn't changed. I want us to be a family, officially. I want to marry you, raise Luna together, maybe give her siblings someday if you want. I'm not asking for that now. I know we're not ready. But I'm asking you to know that's where I'm heading. And if you're heading somewhere else, tell me now." Ellis smiled, the first truly joyful smile he'd seen since his return, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "I'm heading toward the same place," she whispered. "Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. We're building something real this time, something that can weather storms because it's founded on truth and trust, and the hard work of loving imperfectly." She stood on her toes, kissing him softly, a promise, and a beginning. "I love you too, Adrian. I choose you. Choose us. Choose this family we're creating together." Luna ran back to them, demanding they look at the butterfly she'd caught in her cupped hands. And they knelt together, 3 heads bent over the delicate creature. "Make a wish and let it go," Ellis suggested, and Luna screwed up her face in concentration. "I wish we could always be together like this," she declared, then opened her hands. The butterfly spiraled upward, iridescent wings catching the fading light, and Adrian wrapped his arms around both his girls, holding his entire world. Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. If you loved Adrian, Elise, and Luna's story, please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Your support means everything to us, and we can't wait to bring you more heartfelt stories. See you in the next video.